We are here today with my new friend, Shiv Singh, who is a former marketing executive. He was at companies like Pepsi, Lending Tree, Visa. He was also at a startup that IPO'd. He now owns his own company called Savvy Matters, and he is also the author of a book called Marketing with AI for Dummies. Shiv, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you doing this and sharing a little bit about your work and your career journeys.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be doing this interview.
I want to talk about your career. And you were wildly successful, and it feels like you found success very early. And I would love to just listen and learn a little bit about what drove some of the decision making from starting early at Pepsi to also being at Razorfish to working within a startup. So just would love to hear a little bit about if there's a guiding light when it comes to your career decision making.
In a sense, I've been running through life and I've done everything in a hurry and ahead of schedule in many respects, and also in many respects that may or may not have been the best things. I've always been in a foreign environment. So I was partly in India, partly in Dubai, in the United Arab Emirates, partly in the UK, partly in America. And it gave me this unease that I needed to accomplish something.
Why were you all over the world at such a young age?
That's my parents' fault. So my dad was a career banker. His job took him to all these different places, and we as a family would move with him.
Yep.
And so every couple of years, I was changing schools and, in a sense, having to reprove myself, make new friends, get to know teachers, figure out the classes, figure out the context and the world that I was living in. And what that created in me was both a sense of urgency and then a desire that I needed to prove my worth. I'd say made me who I am. I was both running life or leading life in a hurry, and I was moving to new places and new spaces where I could establish myself on my own in my own world. And that's been a strain that stayed with me throughout my life. When I started working, I was all about the intersection of the arts and the sciences. I grew up writing right from the time when I was 6 years old. For the longest time, I wanted to be a writer, but I was also deeply fascinated by technology. And so when I started working, it was 99. It was the heyday of the dot-com boom. And in those days, the chance to work at an agency that was helping companies figure out the internet was like a dream come true. So that's when I started working for Razorfish.
Razorfish.
And I had the privilege of working with some incredible brands early on. So a lot of doors would open for us. We had seats at tables where we actually really didn't deserve to have those seats. But the funny thing is, and I'll never forget this moment, and it taught me about the power of brands. It was 2000, I was in New York, I was meeting with a client. The client was Chanel. I was in 9 West. On the top floor, in the background, I could see Central Park. And the VP of marketing, who ran all marketing for Chanel in the US at the time, we had just finished presenting to her. And she turned to me and she said, Shiv, you folks just don't understand. And I was like, what do you mean? I thought I was about to get fired from that assignment. And she said, it's not about whether Chanel is ready for the internet. It's about whether the internet is ready for Chanel. I'll never forget that because it taught me about humility. It taught me about the power of brand. It taught me about putting moments of time in perspective in the arc of history. And it served me well. I've stories like that that have carried me through.
If you look back at that time period, were there things you would have done differently?
I think what I would do differently or think about is actually a little earlier in my career, which was the point when I moved from agency side at Razorfish to PepsiCo. And I say that because I knew the job I needed to do very well, but I didn't know how to navigate and how to build a career in an organization like PepsiCo.
Yeah.
I went from a 2,000 person company to a 200,000 employee company. I
Yeah.
went from a company where what I delivered and what I did was at the heart of its revenue model and people were very excited about, to an organization where digital marketing was, at the start at least, a fringe activity in this 200,000
Yeah.
Fortune 50 company. It took a while for me to learn and understand how to work in a highly matrixed, highly complex organization where I was without a doubt foreign body because I was the person showing up talking about the future, how digital was changing marketing, how you couldn't ignore YouTube or Facebook, how 2% of a media spend for a brand just was not appropriate when consumers were spending 30, 40, 50% of their time in digital. So I had incredible highs when I was at PepsiCo and some incredible lows because I was learning how to work with other people who were coming from a very different place, who did not like what I had to say and
Yeah.
who saw me as a threat to their career journeys. Yeah.
It's the part of being young. Let's fast track a little bit. I want to talk about Lending Tree and some of the decisions you made to actually start your own company, to start Savvy Matters, and why you are so dedicated to what's going on in marketing with AI right now. You can very well get any CMO job anywhere. You're wildly successful. You're on the cutting edge again with AI, and that's proven. You're training marketers. You're going into corporations and helping them get their teams ramped up, think about their strategy with AI. What drove that decision versus I'm going to do another run somewhere else?
Firstly, I've been incredibly fortunate with my career, and a lot of it has been tied to having incredible mentors who sort of watched out for me and given me pivotal advice at key points. Along the way, I've also written 3 books. Marketing with AI is the third book. And I mentioned that because my first book was on social media marketing for dummies. I wrote that in 2008 and it did extremely well, 7 editions, half a dozen languages. And for the next decade, while I was at PepsiCo and Visa, as a part of my role, I'd be traveling the world, advising banks and merchants on how they could use social media to drive their businesses forward and engage customers. I say that because I was the absolute biggest, greatest enthusiast.
Yeah.
And I thought it would change the world, and it did. What I didn't see was the damage that it would do. The damage when it comes to human rights, to our democracy here in the States, to teenagers, to society, and its social impact. The second book I wrote was Savvy Navigating Fake Companies, Fake Leaders, and Fake News, which I co authored with my wife, who's a clinical psychologist, was a bit of a mea culpa for how I had missed what was going on with social media and didn't talk about the risks and the worries and the dark side to it.
Mm-hmm.
I share this to make the point that 2 years ago, when I left Lending Tree, I wanted to write this book on marketing with AI. And I wanted to make sure that in my own small way, I was doing everything I can to make sure that with AI, we weren't making those same mistakes
Yeah,
again,
that's
that we were treating it responsibly, thoughtfully. And I say this with the utmost sincerity and seriousness. The stakes couldn't be higher. We're dealing with a general purpose technology that is more powerful than any of us have seen in our lifetimes, that is arguably the most powerful technology ever to have existed in humankind, that has increasingly showing signs of consciousness and a mind of its own, that is going to cause huge disruptions
yeah.
in the labor market, that's going to upend marketing careers specifically, but across other
Mm-hmm.
roles, from product to technology, etc. And I wanted to make sure that I could sleep well at night knowing that in whatever small way I can influence the world around me, I was educating, informing, guiding, and supporting so that we'd move into this future in as human centric, human first, responsible, and ethical a fashion that we could be. So that's what led to the book, that's what led to the consulting,
Yep.
and that's what's led to this.
With the consulting, you could touch more companies and more people versus going inside a company.
Oh, without a doubt. While being inside a large organization would fuel my ego and I'd feel fancy and important and all that
Yeah,
stuff,
because you'd have those big budgets again.
I'd have the budgets. Yeah,
Yeah,
people would be laughing at my jokes. They would
yeah,
be interested in where I'm spending my money. If I just look at my last 7 days alone, I spoke at this conference in New York in front of 300 people. I then flew to DC, where I was speaking at the National Association of Corporate Directors
yeah.
to a room of 300 board directors of Fortune 500 companies. I was working with a client up in Boston for 2 days, a very large brand, talking about AI and marketing, but guiding them around being responsible. My book, I just heard in the last month, it has hit its fourth print run and its sixth language translations.
Congratulations.
Thank
That's
you.
awesome.
I'm sharing this to make the point that I'm able to reach more and touch more. That's because I'm able to talk about these issues where in an organization I wouldn't be able to. Those are very important roles, and other folks are doing incredible jobs with them.
Yeah.
But for me, at this point in my career and what I want to accomplish, I saw this as the biggest way that I could have the influence and impact that I
Yeah.
felt
It's
heard.
incredible the work you're doing. And I've been to your conference and it's
Yeah.
really impactful.